So this is where Omega is hiding after the battle with Shinryu at Belsor's Wall. Had to sacrifice a Lalafell to win that one.
Too soon. Hey Cat, I dare to jump in.
Oh no, I don't think even the Yakko would save me from that fall.
So, our information on Omega dates back to when the Alligans used Omega to capture Primal Bahamut. Haven't really heard of it since then, until it was rumored to be hidden in the Carton of Flats. That's where Nero found the console and suggested we use Omega to fight Shinryu.
It must be very powerful. I hope some cute creature comes along to help us again.
Same. We'll probably need all the help we can get. Let's go talk to Biggs and Wedge and see what problems they've encountered in our search for Omega. Once upon a time, in Relger's Reach, we meet Biggs and Wedge to discuss the missing Omega weapon. As we head to the workshop, we find an upset Sid and a smug Nero decked out in Ironworks gear. Sid immediately tries to get rid of Nero, who, enjoying Sid's distress, pokes fun at him pretending to be an offended new recruit. Sid demands Jessie terminates Nero's employment, but she informs him that Nero is already paid in full, and we need his expertise with Omega. Suddenly, an Ironworks hand arrives and informs us that the etheric concentration levels at the Yawn have spiked. We head off to investigate.
As we arrive at the Yawn, we see only a purple spew of mist and liquid below. Midgard Sommer, our baby minion friend, appears and jokes that his war with mankind has long since ended, but this abhorrent stench woke him up. Midgard Sommer states that Omega is here, an enemy of his for eons. As we're discussing this, a small chocobo creature flies from the pit below, followed by a ghastly dragon. The dragon misses the chocobo and flies straight through Sid instead. Perhaps it was only an illusion? Midgard Sommer warns us that the illusion was one of Omega's creations. Omega is capable of weaving aether into life, and the serpent may be harmless now, but will soon take on a corporeal form.
Now back to the matters at hand. Who is this little adorable guy? He looks like a chocobo, he quests like a chocobo. I'm thinking it's probably a chocobo. Even as the Warrior of Light, we're unable to communicate with it for some reason, but Midgard Surmer can translate for us since the chocobo seems to be a being from Omega. In the meantime, Nero tells us of his knowledge with Omega. Dating back to the Third Astral Era, we have records of the Alligans stating, Omega activation successful. However, there are no other records of it until its use in the battle against Bahamut in Mericidia. It was always assumed that the Alligans built Omega, but according to Midgard Stormer, Omega is actually from another world.
After talking with the chocobo, Midgard Sommer tells us that the little guy came from a plane between worlds. He was ordered to fight, but being so small and weak, he instead chose to cross over to our world and seek help. He states that if we wish to know more, we should jump into the purple goop as it is a portal into Omega's domain. Once we get there, the chocobo will guide us.
After a very ominous splash, we arrive in the afterlife. Dead? By the 12! A giant TV appears and claims to be Omega. He tells us we're in a rift between dimensions, the perfect place for his experiment. It seems we can't leave or he'll erase us from existence. Okay, we're not dead. Yet. We give our consent to participate in his experiment in order to see what mysteries Omega holds. Doing so assigns us to the Alpha group and teleports us to the trial. The aim of the experiment is to determine the mightiest being in all of creation. I don't mean to brag, but have you seen my parse?
Shush. Omega has been running simulations for 89 candidates, one of which was Subject Alpha, our chocobo friend. At least he has a name now. With that, Alpha grants us authorization to fight on his team in the trial. As we move forward, we encounter a level checker with a barrier. We make short work of these lowly combatants as Wedge disables the barriers and everyone else, including Sid, fights the enemies. At the end of our run is a large egg depicting a castle. If Omega is truly gathering the strongest creatures from various worlds, then what are we about to go up against? Omega tells us we are to enter the Deltascape and defeat all test subjects within. We set up a research base and take Alpha with us into the Deltascape so he can grant us authorization to engage in combat. Kweh!
Alte Reute. Records from Final Fantasy V indicate that he's an old man guarding treasure in the dimensional castle. This winged serpent is his true form. Back at camp, Nero has done some investigating. It appears that there are 4 combatants in Deltascape, but with 1 down, we have 3 to go. Midgard Stormer explains that Omega always wants to improve itself and evolve. It does this by competing with strong foes. Omega sacrifices a lot of energy to create a lifeform in the corporeal realm, so these trials within his simulation plane allow him to test unfinished works to determine the single entity worthy of creation. Omega means to fight against the champion. As we plan to go back into the Deltascape, Biggs and Wedge head off to Cartano to check on Omega's control room. Nero mentions that the next enemy has the ability to manipulate gravity, and gives us an anti-gravity gimbal so that we might have an advantage.
Catastrophe. Records from Final Fantasy V indicate this monstrosity blocked off the exit to the interdimensional castle and would knock its foes to the ground by controlling gravity itself. Only after we defeat the abomination does Nero tell us that his gravity device wasn't actually intended to be used on living... Oh boy, there's something wrong with him.
Our next encounter is slated to be Helicarnassus, the queen of Dimension Castle. Nero knows of her from an ancient tale dating back to the 4th Astral Era. However, not much is actually known of that time period, so we have little to go off of. Midgard Sommer explains that Omega is a logical being and sees no difference between reality and folktale. Omega's creations are much like Primals in that they take the image of the summoner's imagination. Cue Nero's maniacal laughter and Sid telling Nero to be quiet. We adults are talking. Helicarnassus. Records from Final Fantasy V indicate this so-called king of Dimension Castle can turn people into frogs. Beware the kiss of death.
Our final bout in the Deltascape is with a great tree, which assumes the form of a dark mage. The enemy is Exdeath, another antagonist in stories of old. Exdeath apparently has the ability to control the void. Nero states that Exdeath was defeated by the heroes in the story, and Sid wonders why Omega would bother with those who were defeated when trying to determine the strongest being. Biggs calls us to state that he and Wedge have made it to Omega's control room in Cartano. Apparently, the system indicates that Omega is still actively engaged, even though that can't be. Odd. Must be a malfunction. Anyway, we have a date with his void mage, Exdeath.
Exdeath. Records from Final Fantasy V indicate he's a tree from the Great Forest of Moor. Behind the armor is a creature of unmatched strength, obsessed with the void. He would have gotten along well with Zandi. Well, with the last Deltascape combatants defeated, Alpha is declared victorious. The Deltascape shuts down and we return to our corporeal forms. Omega needs time to calculate the results and advises we attend to our hurts and await further instruction. After we leave, Omega states that the outcome supports the hypothesis. Certain beings may unleash hidden potential when subjected to stress. Omega plans to initiate a new severe stress test on us. Death of a comrade.
The gang heads over to meet Biggs and Wedge in the Cartano Flats. Upon entering the Omega control room, we find Biggs and Wedge unconscious. They were apparently attacked by a monster, one that appeared out of thin air. The Omega computer begins to relay a message. Targets exhibit vital signs. Mission failed. However, Alpha group members exhibit heightened levels of stress. Objective fulfilled. It was Omega who attacked Biggs and Wedge, attempting to kill them in order to put us through a great deal of stress, to see how it would affect our ability in combat. Famed heroes of the past have all risen up against great odds to overcome something greater. Omega states that by your victories you have demonstrated that self-same anomaly and are fit to remain his subjects. If we refuse to participate, Omega will commence the extermination of our kind.
Frustrated, we take Biggs and Wedge back to Gridania to recover. The rest of the group meets back at Ralger's Reach. Sid is frustrated that we ever activated Omega in the first place. Sure, it was the only way to stop Shinryu, but now mankind is being held ransom, and they don't even know it. Nero disagrees and tells Sid that he should act more like the scientist he used to be, who only looked forward. I guess we play Omega's little game for now. Etheric readings are spiking again at the yawn, a sure sign we should return. Oh, but first, Jesse has a cute little outfit for Alpha. Doesn't he look adorable? We asked Jesse for a cool outfit too, but our request is denied. Sad.
Back at the yawn, we dive, literally, into another one of Omega's tests. Oh joy, these are so fun. The level checker machine tells us that approximately half of the combatants have been eliminated from the experiment. As we march forward, Alpha joins the fight with a few cards up his sleeve. He's not the only one with tricks up his sleeve. Nero summons his gunhammer and iron outfit. Some very familiar music plays and Nero says, "Step aside, Garland, and bear witness to the devastation." Oh no, did I queue into the wrong duty? Where's Gaius? Am I on an elevator?
At our trial's end, Omega comes to belittle us. It asks why Midgard's Sormer is helping. Surely he doesn't have the strength to defeat Omega, even if he was in his prime. We'll see about that. The Sigmascape battles await. Our only information to go off is this creepy mask in the egg ahead. The next combatant fight could be anything. Phantom Train. Records from Final Fantasy VI indicate that this is a carrier of dead souls to the afterlife. If only we had the ability to suplex it, I think we could deal some big damage. Before we leave the Phantom Train, a woman and child appear as ghosts before us. They say, "Traveler from afar, thank you for Doma."
Up next is apparently a possessed painting named Chatternook. Nero created a device called the Chocobo Brush for this very occasion. By using it on nearby paintings, we can hope to influence the world around us. After handing us the brush, Nero points out that he has no steaming cup in his hand and berates Cid for not filling with a bloody kettle from time to time. Meanwhile, Alpha heads over to the kettle and places a card next to it with a depiction of spring water. What are you up to? A question for later. Time to paint.
Chatternook. Records from Final Fantasy VI indicate our enemy is a demon that possesses paintings. He frequently is associated with possessing a painting of the goddess Lakshmi. After defeating Chatternook, we get word that Biggs and Wedge are waiting in the yawn to see us. They apparently snuck out to show their support for our adventure, to wish us luck, and to give us a nice snack for the battles ahead. Wedge asks if Cid has enough help to handle all the little jobs, and Cid admits to being spoiled as he recently learned that the kettle does not in fact fill itself. We're muddling our way through though, so Cid sends Biggs and Wedge back home to heal.
Back at camp, Nero is analyzing our next opponent and apparently drinking salt water. From above, Omega looks down on Nero and states that the Alpha group is showing signs of recovering and needs action to maintain stress levels. Nero hears a noise from behind and Omega attacks.
We head back into the rift and speak with Nero, who isn't looking so good for some reason. Cid asks if he's okay, but Nero brushes off his concern and blames it on the saltwater coffee. Our next battle is with the Guardian. Straightforward name, so probably a straightforward fight. Guardian. Records from Final Fantasy VI indicate this machine is capable of channeling the powers of other fighters. Nearly impenetrable, it serves its master to hold its ground and keep invaders away. It is anything but straightforward.
Trains, possessed paintings, evolving machines, what's next? Apparently, the pinnacle fight of Sigmascape is a jester by the name of Kefka. His records show that he finds humor in the suffering of others. He doesn't just aim to bring the house down with his jokes, but the whole world. His ascension to godhood in another world means he will be quite the foe. In order to combat this tricky villain, Nero's brilliant plan is to tell us when the jester is attempting to deceive us. Great, we've got a 50% chance of success at dodging Kefka's attacks with Nero shouting delayed callouts in our ear as he watches from the safety of his monitor. I hope we don't lag at all.
Kefka. Records from Final Fantasy VI indicate that this once court mage ascended to godhood in hopes of destroying the world. Looks like we got the last laugh. Embrace your destruction, Kefka. It is the fate of all things. Back at camp, Cid rejoices in our victory, but it's short-lived as Nero suddenly collapses. He claims to have had an encounter with Omega when we checked on Biggs and Wedge during their visit. Yet his determination to solve the secrets of Sigmascape kept him from expressing the pain he was in until we were victorious. He'll need to rest up too. Looks like Cid is going to have to take the reins in the next dimension zone.
With the Jester God dead, we are named victorious over Sigmascape. The test world will be erased, so we best head out. As we take our leave, Omega shares what he has learned. He noticed that we conserve energy throughout our day and expend great amounts in battle. In this fluctuation, he has no idea how to assign us a power level. Surely it's over 9,000. Omega has to know. He needs us to face mortal peril in order to evaluate our strength.
Suddenly, we're captured in a prism and endure tremendous pain. Omega demands we break free or it'll terminate our life. We have 180 seconds to escape. Our boy Alpha pulls out a frog card and turns into a froggy. He jumps at the prison, but it's no use. Midgard-Sormer is moved by the action and bends the rules of the dimensional rift to reveal his true form. His mighty jaw breaks us free of the prism. My friends are my power. Midgard-Sormer tells Omega that if it wishes to become the most powerful being, it has but to witness the Warrior of Light in our finest hour of battle. Only then can Omega determine if the prize is even theirs for the taking.
Convinced that only through a final set of trials can it become more powerful, Omega releases us until the stage is set. Sadly, Midgard-Sormer must now sleep for a long time due to the energy spent to free us.
After reconvening at Ralger's Reach, we set up a plan to take on Omega, and Nero is sent off to the infirmary. Sid begins building a device to help us in our upcoming fights using research notes from his father during the incident at Bajra Citadel. He asks Jesse to finish the device so we can jump right back into our engagement with Omega. When we re-enter the interdimensional rift, Omega reveals that he has narrowed down the best of fighters to us and 4 others. We are to fight the strongest of the 4.
As we're about to move forward, Omega stops us and states that Alpha can leave. Omega only wants us to compete. It reveals to us that Alpha was his first creation, and it took multiple iterations to create the companion before us. Frustrated with the lack of strength of its creation, Omega took to searching for stronger and stronger monsters. Alpha's memory was wiped, and he was sent out to our world as bait to lure us in. Sid is upset. He calls out Omega for creating life with no purpose. For without conviction to drive life, they are but shells of their vision. It's no wonder that heroes like us, those that have something worth fighting for, rise above them. We head out to set up camp and encourage a sad Alpha to join us. After taking time to set back up our interdimensional campsite, we look to the final challenge, Alphascape. Omega provided us with a few notes on our enemies, though it's hard picking out myth from fantasy. The only discernible truth is our foe's name, Chaos. Poor Alpha is very sad at having baited us into coming here, and Sid attempts to cheer Alpha up, asking if Alpha could refill the kettle for him.
Chaos. Records from the original Final Fantasy indicate that this is the most powerful being of them all, maintaining a time loop so that he can live in eternity. This demon represents darkness and the opposite of light. As the Warrior of Light, I need to kill Chaos. After defeating the beast, Omega contemplates what Sid said. Perhaps its creations are nothing compared to the will of a mortal. It deems us worthy of one of its greatest creations, that of a memory. Our world evolves into a strange planet. Omega tells us we're on a simulation of the Dragon Star, where Omega was first deployed to fight Midgard-Sormer. But this Midgard-Sormer is a vision of his prime form, a true incarnation of the red-maned father of dragons. We are to fight the worm to the death. Luckily, Sid messages Omega and convinces it to let us return and rest a moment so we can regather our strength and maintain the constant in the experiment.
Back at camp, we find Alpha waiting, but Sid is nowhere to be seen. That is until he calls out to us. He's invisible. Must have been something in the tea Alpha made for him. The effect wears off, allowing us to better communicate as we plan to take on Midgard-Sormer. The log tells us that Omega and Midgard-Sormer come from 2 different worlds that were at war. Omega was deployed to fight Midgard-Sormer, and in response, Midgard-Sormer took his brood and left his home behind.
This was the reason he came to our world, to seek shelter from Omega. We fought Midgard-Sormer before at the Keeper of the Lake, but this form will be far more challenging. Midgard-Sormer, we need no records for this enemy. Our now companion was once a fierce dragon. Just remember this isn't personal. It's a clone of our friend. Having bested all of Omega's trials, we are congratulated as the only remaining team. We now have an invitation to confront Omega itself. Sid thinks he has a way to exploit Omega's weakness, but he needs a hand in preparing the device. Alpha agrees to help by pooping out a bunch of rocks, gems, and a minimize card capable of shrinking the wielder. Not exactly what we had in mind. Sid gives Alpha a bottle of that invisible water for safekeeping and decides to check back with Jesse.
Back at Regler's Reach, we catch Sid picking up a new device with a very shaky and nervous hand. Seems as though Jetsi was able to finish his design. Nero is here too and makes note of the ingenious model. Omega's weakness was revealed in the battle with Shinryu. Shinryu was able to cast lightning attacks, which seemed to severely damage Omega's systems. And that leads us to the device Sid made, a powerful shock emitter based on the lunar transmitter his father designed. Sid is very nervous as it was the same type of device that ultimately resulted in the death of his father, but Sid believes that with the modifications he made, the device could be used to safely combat Omega. He calls it the Omega Jammer, capable of delivering a small but powerful lightning burst. Looks like we're ready to save the world, again.
Omega, the very creature that caused Midgard-Stormer's exodus, bested Bahamut and fought against Shinryu. Now it faces us, the heroes with enough plot armor to practically guarantee a win. With Omega lying defeated on the floor, it finally realizes our true strength. It surmises that our form must hide a secret it cannot detect. With knowledge of the ultimate life form, Omega collapses the rift and leaves us to the void. Alpha is pulled away from us, so we run after him before he's teleported away. In a pitch of black, the void collapses and Alpha appears again, walking among the stars. We hear an overlay of sound from Omega, entering dormant mode, and target Midgard-Stormer, departure from planetary atmosphere confirmed. Presence of 7 distinct lifeforms detected in close vicinity of target. Irrelevant. Master indicates no change in existing directive. Commencing pursuit. The following messages from Omega tell of its struggle to chase Midgard-Stormer across the stars, constantly using its ability to reform and adapt in order to survive. Though these actions drained its energy, and its target was ultimately lost when it came to our world.
Alpha makes it to the platform in the Sea of Stars to meet Omega. Omega tells Alpha that his friends are lost in the void and that Alpha is to help him bait in new test subjects. Alpha cries out in protest as we reappear atop Alpha's head and jump off. That minimize card in invisible water sure did come in handy. Great plan, Alpha. Omega is confused as to how we continue to defy its projections and challenges us to battle again, this time in human form. He wishes to understand our physiology, mindset, and mortality in this form.
Omega, in its final form. Well, we're in space now. Goodbye, world. Okay, Omega, you wanted to test us? Well, let the experiment begin. Truly defeated this time, Omega is at a loss for words. What it failed to emulate in us was our heart, our spirit, the intangible strength of our soul. If it truly wished to learn, it would have stood by us, like Alpha did, not against us. With this lesson in mind, Omega finally understands, but it's too late, and Omega fades away.
Boom! The rift begins to collapse. Oh no, not again. Off in the distance, we see Reisfelger flying in with Biggs and Wedge atop his back. Midgard-Stormer apparently sent word for our rescue. After flying back to our world, we land in front of what used to be the purple pool of goo. The liquid is gone, I guess confirming Omega has been dealt with. We thank Reisfelger for rescuing us, and by extension, Midgard-Stormer.
Back at Relger's Reach, we debrief on our adventure. Omega has been defeated, and everyone actually had a good hand in making that possible. As for what we should report back to the Alliance leaders, well, Sid says we should tell them everything. I mean, it's not like the technology can fall into the wrong hands. Omega's gone, never to return. And what of our favorite companion, Alpha? What will he do? Well, the chief gave him personal research rights to go out into the world and explore. Looks like Alpha gets to set out on his own adventure and see the world. Man, everyone's always trying to kill us. I'm tired of this life of adventuring. I'm gonna retire to a life in the theater and act on stage.
Can you start your career acting like a barista and refill the coffee maker?
1 saltwater cup of coffee coming right up.
It was cute when Alpha did it, but I am not drinking salt water.
Kat, you should join me. I know you do a pretty good mime impression.
That is true. Alright.
Be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe down below.
What did you enjoy or not enjoy about the Omega Raid series? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching!